March 14th, 2001 was the exact date on the folder. Not around then, not spring 2001, not mid March. The exact date. That mattered because whoever built the archive had cared about confidence more than anything else. Confidence high, confidence mid, source, significance, date linkage, exact date verification. The labels repeated so often they stopped looking like labels and started to feel like instructions. I found it in an old zip directory, mirrored off a dead university server, nested under a name that sounded less like a file and more like a sealed room. The Barker RSA 2001 block. Inside were patched report files, a crude activity heat map, and a locked archive split into lanes. Video games, underground music, national and international news, Fox TV iconoclasts, toys and action figures, internet culture. Everything was normalized. Deduped, checked, archive ready. Whoever made it had wanted a perfect fact check of March 13th, 2001 through March 15th, 2001, as if 3 days in early 2001 required containment. At first, it looked harmless, obsessive, but harmless. There were references to Fox scheduled archive polls, White House archive snapshots, rerun broadcast timing, Bush Plainfield visit notes, and little media breadcrumbs. Lisa the Tree Hugger, Pokemon, that '70s show, Disney's Aladdin and the Sierra's Revenge, Bot Fighters, Dreamcast, Unreal Tournament, Toy Story Racer, Garbage Rough Mix, a whole dead ecosystem of internet culture and broadcast residue. Quiet lanes here, spike events there, density scores, softened buffer notes for anything uncertain. It read like somebody had tried to turn television, policy, governance, war, legislation, underground music, video games, and national news into one clean machine. And maybe that was all it was. Then I opened the heat map. It was a flat HTML page, primitive even for 2001 standards. All table borders and tiny GIF dots. Across the top, March 13th, 2001, March 14th, 2001, March 15th, 2001. Down the side, lane after lane. Some cells were quiet, some fading, some waning. One or two showed spike behavior. A few were marked explosive. When you hovered over March 14th, 2001, a tooltip appeared. Verified activity exceeds reruns allowed. I remember that exactly because it didn't fit the rest of the system. Everything else was archivist language, dry, clinical, but that sentence felt like the archive itself was warning whoever used it. I checked the source code. There was a comment buried near the bottom. Trace, empty. If confidence drops below critical mass, under that another. Patched because rerun broadcasts would not stay in lane. That was the first time I got that stupid heavy feeling in my chest. The one you get when you realize something on a screen is behaving like it knows you're reading it. I started opening more files. One report was titled Standardized Archiving Spec Applied. Another, Core Determinants. Another, Softened Buffer. The language repeated constantly. Archive, exact date, rerun, broadcast, confidence, patched, schedule, source, significance, linkage, verified, density, lane, report, item, normalized, locked, and everywhere. March 14, 2001. Not just the date, as an entity. It began to show up where it shouldn't. A White House archive note with Bush in Plainfield, New Jersey. Grace Episcopal Church, Youth Entertainment Academy, A Fox schedule archive listing rerun broadcast blocks next to The Simpsons and That 70s Show. An Animation World Network mention of ASI, FA, Hollywood, and the Zagreb cartoon retrospective. A video games lane with Bot Fighters, Dreamcast, Unreal Tournament, Disney's Aladdin, and Asira's Revenge, Toy Story Racer, an underground music lane with Garbage Rough Mix, and then for no reason, another pointer back to March 14, 2001, like the date itself belonged in the music metadata. The linkage was wrong. Not broken, wrong. Every lane was being pulled toward the same center. I found a text file called fact check underscore final underscore patch d3.txt. The spelling and formatting were inconsistent, like it had been edited too many times by too many hands. At the top, it said confidence high, archive stable, confidence mid, rerun contamination persists, quiet lanes preserved, critical mass not yet reached. Then, below that, line after line of itemized entries, source, significance, exact date, verified activity, buffer zone, softened buffer, and then a paragraph with no heading at all. Fox was easiest to patch because reruns were allowed. White House Archive required direct linkage. Underground music was fading. National news was explosive. Video games produced false positives. Internet culture carried trace. If lane density crosses critical mass on March 14, 2001, do not rebroadcast. Rebroadcast what? I searched the whole directory for that phrase. Only one hit. A tiny media file in a folder called /broadcast /Fox underscore TV / with no extension. Just the file name rerun underscore 031420001 underscore final. It wouldn't open in any normal player. I had changed the extension 3 times before I got static in a few seconds of audio. Not music, just not exactly speech either, just a degraded rough mix of room tone, TV hiss, and something underneath it that sounded like several broadcasts playing at once. I heard a laugh track, a news anchor cadence, menu noise like a Dreamcast booting, and then very clearly a male voice saying, confidence high. Then another, same cadence, flatter, confidence mid. Then both together, exact date. After that, the file glitched and dumped me back to the desktop. I wish I could say I stopped there. Instead, I went back into the report files and noticed something I missed. The terms weren't just repeated often, they were distributed, weighted, structured. High frequency phrases always framed the page. Mid frequencies entities showed up in the body. Lower frequency terms clustered at the edges and buffers, comments, and footnotes. The archive wasn't merely describing March 14, 2001. It was rebuilding it by recurrence. That is the only way I can explain what happened next. The more I opened, the more the files normalized around me. My desktop clock froze for maybe 3 seconds at 11:14. My browser started auto-filing old domains I've never visited. A dead Fox page loaded without CSS and showed a rerun broadcast block where every program title linked to the same blank page. The White House Archive mirror returned to 2001 style layout with Bush Plainfield visit listed twice, once under national and international news and once under source, as if source had become a location. My music folder briefly displayed garbage as a directory. My phone picked up a mobile network name I didn't recognize. I know how that sounds. That's why I sat on this for years. I kept digging anyway because by that point I thought there had to be a human explanation. An art project, some early ARG, a corrupted research archive, maybe a patchwork mirror made by one obsessive forum admin, but every explanation got weaker the deeper I went. In archive underscore ready underscore notes.htm, the author wrote March 13, 2001, quiet. March 14, 2001, density spike. March 15, 2001 fading, but linkage retained. Then reruns allowed only until archive reaches self-verification. Self-verification? That phrase never appeared anywhere else, but once was enough. The last file I opened was a visualization page. Simple black background, green text like fake hacker garbage from that era. Across it scrolled the lane names and loops, video games, underground music, national and international news, Fox TV iconoclasts, internet culture, toys and action figures. Under each lane, the entities cycled: Fox, Bush, White House, The Simpsons, Garbage, Bot Fighters, Dreamcast, FTC, Unreal Tournament, Toy Story Racer, Lisa the Tree Hugger, Pokemon, The 70s Show. At the center of the screen, larger than everything else, March 14, 2001. Below it, one line kept updating: confidence high, confidence high, confidence high. Then it changed. Confidence. You are now source. The page locked. The browser stopped responding. My speakers made that old CRT adjacent hum I've not heard in years. And the reflection on the monitor, for maybe half a second, I saw what I first took for a layered Windows. Then I realized it was a heat map, a literal one, rows and columns of dim blocks floating over the room behind me, lanes of activity suspended in the reflection of like a broadcast overlay. Most were quiet. One was explosive, directly behind my chair. I killed power at the strip, not shut down. I killed the power. The room went silent. When I restarted later, the Barker RSA folder was still there, but lighter, smaller. Most of the files were trace, empty placeholders. The media file was gone. The heat map HTML had collapsed into a broken table. March 13, 2001 and March 15, 2001 were barely present. Only March 14, 2001 remained intact, with confidence high stamped across 3 separate files like a rubber seal. I copied everything I could to an external storage, but the copy was never clean. File counts changed, hashes drifted, the patched report generated different folder sizes on different machines. Sometimes Fox Schedule Archive was missing. Sometimes White House Archive duplicated. Once, for no reason, the folder created a new subdirectory called Softened Buffer and filled it with empty text documents, all dated March 14, 2001. I never uploaded the archive anywhere. I never opened it on a networked machine again. But every so often, usually in March, I will be searching for something ordinary, and autocomplete will offer a phrase I've never typed into that device. Not a website, not a person, just archive language. Exact date, date linkage, reruns allowed, critical mass. And once, last year, the suggestion was March 14, 2001, confidence high, source. I don't know what the Barker RSA 2001 block originally was. A research system, a report, a patched archive, maybe just an overbuilt fact check that started feeding on its own source logic until the boundaries between broadcast, rerun, archive, and event got thin. But I do know this: if you ever find an old report from early 2001, looks too organized, too verified, too normalized, and it keeps insisting on the exact date, do not keep opening files just because the quiet lanes make it seem harmless. Some archives don't preserve the day. They wait until they have enough confidence to broadcast it again.